Welcome to the Phoenix Prosperity Podcast, where wealth meets legacy. Join your host, Tim Fergestad, as we explore the journeys of Phoenix's finest to success and beyond.
All right, this is Tim Fergestad. I'm very excited to have my friend and local Phoenician here, Randy Smith, with me. Hello, Randy.
Hey, Tim, thanks so much for having me on the show. Super glad to be here.
I think you're going to be a great guest because I know a fair amount about your story, and you have a very interesting path through success and to get in a realm similar to what I'm doing with alternative investments and how investments actually made a big impact in your life. And let's get going. Can you start by reflecting on your life's journey? Right? Is there a particular instance that significantly contributed to your wealth or success?
Wow, that's a good question. So yeah, I was basically a sales guy for 25 years in corporate America. So working for two of the largest, Fortune 200 companies, I guess, in the United States. And I had an opportunity probably 5 years into that last role where I had identified an opportunity within the offerings that we were selling, and there was a very significant need for it. And I was able to share that value prop with our clients to just do extremely well in the role that I was doing. I jumped up what we call the stack ranks, so the leaderboard in the sales arena, right, and became the subject matter expert on a specific offering. And it gave me exposure to leadership across the country. And that just really kind of catapulted me into income that I had not ever seen before, probably a 3 or 4x of what I had been earning up to that point. So it created this window of 4 to 5 years where I did very, very well. And my wife and I were very conservative with our investments, and that really led us to where we are today.
Okay, so that brings up an interesting point. As you progressed, can you talk about your appetite for risk and how that may have changed?
Yeah, good question as well, and it's a relevant question for today just as much as it was throughout the whole journey. Sure. So I am a little more open to higher risk than my wife is. And my wife is definitely more conservative. So that has actually evolved over the last handful of years. And my wife and I, when we got married, we actually went down the Dave Ramsey baby steps route to pay off debt. Sure. And, we were the crazy folks that actually worked all the way through the baby steps and paid off our home. And once that occurred, we started placing capital in what I guess you could call a little bit more risky investments at that point. So really it's conservative at the core, but then the additional money above kind of the core expenses and the traditional debt that folks would carry, we started to get a little more risky. And now that I've left the W-2, I would say that I'm probably investing a little more conservatively than I was in the past when we had very high income W-2. So it's really been fairly organic and ever changing over the last, call it 20 years.
Okay. When you say risky, is that just alternative investments, non-traditional back in the day? Because originally you talked to a financial advisor, that's what they would say. Anything that wasn't this was risky.
Right.
But, can you define that a little bit more about what that might have meant to you?
Yeah, so it's I think it's interesting that you say that, because I don't think the alternative investments are as risky as even potentially being in the stock market personally. Right. But to kind of show the extreme, there was
not venture capital stuff with a 10% success rate or something like that.
Exactly. Yeah. Or seed funding or Series A, B, that type of stuff. I generally stay away from that. I always have stayed away from that. I think it makes sense to have a portion of that in your portfolio, but my portfolio is such that we don't have a spare 10 or 20% to play in those type of investments yet. But to kind of show the extreme there, I mentioned, the Dave Ramsey baby steps, so very, very conservative. And then beyond that, we started buying single family out of state. At one point, we had all of our liquid capital tied up in those deals. We had our house HELOC leverage to the max. We had all of our chips on the table, and a bad turn could have made things very interesting, I would say. But fortunately, we were able to get through that and perform very well on all of those assets. So since then, in looking in the rearview mirror, we've kind of gone back to a little bit more conservative with carefully vetted operators, carefully vetted alternative investments, with folks with very long track records, very large assets under management. So I feel like our risk tolerance is a little bit less than it had been in years past. And it's probably because I left the W-2 and I don't have the huge paycheck coming in that we used to have. So.
Right. Okay. Well, that brings me sort of to one of my next questions, which was sort of the fact that everyone faces setbacks. And could you share a challenge or something that and how you overcame it?
Yeah. So I think the easy one is getting laid off in June of 22. It was something that we saw coming probably for 6 months or so. I don't know if you can ever be fully prepared for it, but we were very well prepared from it from a financial standpoint at the time. And at that moment, when I got the call, I can picture it like it was yesterday. I heard about the layoffs being in Arizona. When layoffs occurred in this large organization, you'd hear kind of the wave that starts on the East Coast as people come in. And, by the time the calendar invite hit my inbox at like 10 a.m., I knew what was coming. So, at that point, fortunately, I had a fairly significant severance that was coming. And because we had been very conservative with our investments and had very aggressive in paying down debt, I had some options, and I got to make the decision: do I go chase corporate America job again, or do I jump in and go all in this real estate space that I've been pursuing on the side for a number of years? And without kind of that conservative approach coming into that, without the high income that we've been very smart with those dollars for years, and without the severance, I probably would have taken that first job offer that came literally within days of the layoff. But because of all those things, I had other options and was able to jump into the real estate space. So.
And has that been generally positive? Are you glad you had that opportunity and option?
So, yeah, that's the $1 million question, right? It's been the most interesting 2 years, I would say. Entrepreneurship is unlike anything that I've ever done before. I guess I was a sales guy, which some people say you're managing your own business when you're a sales guy, but it is a roller coaster. It's an emotional roller coaster. It's a financial roller coaster. Things don't happen overnight or as fast as I want them to. And, just the simple challenges of not having insurance and not having a steady paycheck, it adds for some interesting conversations around the dinner table. I will just say that. But
sure.
All in all, I think it was a blessing. I probably would have been stuck in the W-2 until my, certainly late 50s, probably early 60s, had I not been forced out through the layoff. And I'm building a business that I think has some staying power and sustainability, and I think it's going to ultimately lead to a better financial foundation than what we could have had in the W-2. And I'm getting to help a lot of people kind of offset their own dependence on the W-2 ultimately.
Right. Excellent. Yeah, that was sort of, again, transitioning into where I was headed, but congratulations on having the success and the ability to pivot and have the freedom to do what you wanted at that point. So in addition to educating other people and bringing maybe a wider variety of investment alternatives or options to other people, what other sort of ways are you using your success to have an impact on like the Phoenix area and your friends and family?
Yeah, so I'm really proud to say of the 100 investors that I brought on to the alternative investing space, over a third of those are past colleagues or past clients of mine while I was working in corporate America. So I feel like we're having an impact by teaching other folks how to get at least a portion of their investable capital with exposure to the alternative investing space. And,
Right.
I think back, like, I knew nothing at all about this space until I was 45. I'm 51 today, and I think that had I found this space, in my mid to late 20s or early 30s, like a lot of folks are now, I think that second layoff that I had would not have been as scary as it was, because I would have been much further down the path. So
Right.
I think I'm bringing impact to my network through the offerings that I'm doing. And I'm also bringing impact, or we're bringing impact with our investors to the communities where we're investing those dollars. So we focus primarily on workforce housing. And there is a lot of people that work in this space that are the true slumlords, and they are not providing the quality of housing at the affordable prices that we are to our tenants. So
Right.
not only are we helping our investors, we're also helping the folks that are members of our communities as well.
Right. That's one of the things I enjoy a lot about doing value add multifamily is you're helping the tenants, but you're also helping the communities by fixing up the properties, et cetera, and helping the investors. It's great to have a all around win like that.
Absolutely.
Well, your story highlights sort of the importance of having probably multiple sources of income and diverse sources of income, right? The power of that. But reflecting on your journey, what do you think? Well, what do you wish you knew about building wealth and success earlier in your career, as we wrap up this call?
Yeah, the silly things. I spent far too much money on things when I first started making real income. I think it's the lesson would have been that I should have started investing more heavily early on, frequently. And I think also investing in
like a lot of
experiences.
people, for sure.
Exactly. Yeah. And I'm a big proponent and believer in investing in experiences now versus the things or the heart, those types of things. So invest in experience and invest early, invest often. And yeah, I think also something that's kind of interesting, I've had a change of thought with the 401k plans, traditional retirement plans through employers. It's presented as though if you invest, call it 10%, or at least what the company matches, then essentially you're set when you retire. And the challenge with that strategy is that, one, you're tied almost entirely to the stock market, which is a roller coaster. I saw my dad retire in the late 90s, and he had to go get a new job after spending 35 years working for LA County Sheriff's Department because of everything that happened in the late 90s, early 2000s. So the challenge is that you've got all this exposure to the stock market, and those dollars are tied up until you're 62. So I think it's more important to invest dollars into something that can create livable income versus having everything tied up and handcuffed until you're into retirement ages. So
Amen,
that's been a big
Randy.
shift. That's been a big shift. And people don't like to hear, people are very entrenched with the 401k and employee retirement plans. And I'm just not convinced it's the right way to go anymore.
Right. Great insight. Thank you very much, Randy. Thank you for being here. I appreciate your time today and for sharing your story. It's it's a lot more common than I think a lot of people, or at least it used to be, right? And so congrats again on coming through it with such what I think is you're in a powerful place, right? I think being the captain of your ship, having the financial wherewithal to sustain things like that and still get to choose your life. So that's great. Thank you.
All right. Thanks so much, Tim.
Inspired by our guests? Visit PhoenixProsperityPodcast.com/guest and join us on the show and share your success story with Tim. The spotlight awaits.